My name's Michael Haraway. I played at Lauderdale County High School. I was number 24. Played in 1974, graduated in 75. Played on the 2A state championship team. We had a bunch of good players. We could not have done it if it hadn't been for all of them. Didn't just 2 or 3 do it, every player on the team done it. We had some very good coaching, and a lot of the whole town and everybody was behind us. Everybody, like I said, it didn't just 11 men do it. It was a offense and defense and plus 20-something more that we practiced with and everything. Everybody on the team. We owe a lot of thanks to Coach Ted Kavich for helping us during our junior year. When we was in our junior year, we went undefeated and unscored on it. And the same bunch that was in the junior year in the 9th grade is when we won it in 74. So really, we had a great bunch of guys.
I'm Ted Kavich, was the junior high football coach at Lauderdale County High School in 71. We had a undefeated junior high team unscored on, and then in 74, that same team went on to win the state 2A championship. One memory that sticks out, that last game, and I believe it was Lexington, we were up about 2 touchdowns, and right there towards the end of the game, one of their players did break loose, however, and I can't remember names now, ran them down to keep that year intact and undefeated. They were one heck of a group of ball players, to say the least. They had to be. They went on to win the state championship. Couldn't be no better. The unscored on part, I think, finally took effect maybe halfway through. As it went, the team itself, the confidence is we're not letting anybody score. And it sort of kept building and building in itself within the team itself and the players. They were bound and determined. They wanted to go unscored on, and that's what they did. I can remember a few names off of it. Sammy Springer, I know Haraway. There's quite a few of them I can remember names, but to be exactly to remember the whole team, that's 55 years ago, man. I'm getting old. But those kids, I was doggone proud of them, to say the least.
My name's Danny Springer. I was number 72. I played offensive guard and linebacker and defensive tackle. It was a long time coming. We knew when we started that year that we'd been in the playoffs the 2 prior years and barely got beat. And we'd all been playing together since we were 5th, 6th, 7th grade. I had some good ball clubs, and that's what we wanted to do. We said that was our goal that year, is to win the state championship. A lot of camaraderie. We all got along real well on that team. After a few bumps in the road, we finally made it. Well, there's a few, but I couldn't say some of them. You know, we had Coach Hester. Coach Hester was a big motivator. He said a lot of things that we couldn't repeat, which we've all, toned it down since then, but we're all just a bunch of wild kids, more or less. Some of us, anyway.
How did it feel when the clock ran off in that Ashford game and you actually done it?
Well, I had my helmet and the game ball, and I was going to take the game ball with me, and they'd raffled it off, and I didn't get to take the game ball home with me. And the next week, Coach Grisham and another guy, I don't know if Michael Howard, somebody we got our helmets, and we had to bring our helmets back. We thought was at least deserving to keep our headgear, but we couldn't do that. And I had to give the game ball back. Yeah, they raffled the game ball off at halftime, I think, which we didn't know. They could give them any ball, and they would have never known the difference. And I'd had the game ball. I mean, I didn't deserve the game ball. We all did, but, at least somebody would have had it. A lot of good people on our team, a lot of good underclassmen. Had a lot of people that some that didn't start but made big plays all in, especially in the playoffs. We had a couple that, big plays that saved us, kept us going.
My name is Travis Butler. My role with the Lauderdale County football team was defensive backs coach. Had a star defensive back, Raymond Nance and Eddie Lamar.
When did you start coaching the team?
When I came back to Rogersville, Earl wanted me to help him by coaching the defensive backs. So I did that every year. 72, I think. Well, the thing I remember about the team the most is their self-awareness. They were very motivated, and they had an attitude of, I can't lose. Especially the 10th graders. They had the attitude that they couldn't lose, like Sammy Springer. I think it was the leadership of the seniors, because they had been undefeated in junior high school. And they came up and went to the playoffs 2 years in a row. So the third year they were determined to win. I do have one funny story. When James Haney backed up to receive the punt that he returned for a touchdown, he backed up inside the 10-yard line. Well, that's a no-no. You don't field a punt inside the 10. Ray Hester was yelling, no, 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 let it go. He went from that to go, 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 go. Of course he did. He took it all the way back for a touchdown. I just have a great deal of respect for all the football players, especially the seniors and sophomores and juniors. They were all very good and very well coached and played their best.
Everybody goes by Terry Ingrum. I think my jersey number was number 11. I'm not for sure on that, so because I switched jerseys quite a few times. The bunch before us, they had won every one of their junior high games. Yeah, leadership was one real strong part with those, because us coming up, we didn't want to intimidate them, afraid to whoop us. I can remember some of the grass drills and everything, and I never wanted to go up against Michael Haraway. I think sometimes Earl wanted to see if I had in me, he'd put me up there every now and then, and I'd get laid out. That was their type, though. They were that guy. They said, you're going to be tough if you're going to play on this team. The offense was talked about a lot during that time, but I'm going to be honest with you. I played offense, quarterback, but the defense is what. You look at some of the scores we had. I had a Sunday school teacher, Barry Carroll, and he said, did you play at Rogersville? I said, yeah. He said, did you play on the championship team? I said, yeah. And he said, he played on East Limestone. He said, y'all made us look ugly, and we thought we were good. And I look now at the offensive line size we had for a 2A school at that time. Smallest man on the line, I think, was Gregg Davis, and he weighed 205. And we had Danny Springer, Charles Crunk, there was Rickey Green, there was Keith Masonia. There was another Davis that played on line. I'm sorry, I went dead on that one. And we had a plethora of running backs. Yes, we had Haney, Roberson, and Haraway. Haraway was the bull. Don't even ask me what game it was in. Michael had come in off the sideline, and he said, run this play. And Earl, which we were blessed to have coaches, because he always said, if you see something different, you change the play. And whether I seen something different, I felt like it would work, I don't know. It was supposed to go into Mike Roberson sweeping right. Well, I called the play, I think it was 32X. That was where Michael Haraway got the ball. He got the ball, and he bowled over several people, made a touchdown, but he came back, he said, that wasn't the play you're supposed to run. And I said, does it matter? But it's... We had a great coaching staff. Our offensive line, most of those played defense. We had linebackers. We had Dale Watkins. We had Nance, played defensive end. We had guys that just really stepped up. Lamar played safety and cornerback, and Blaine McCoy and several of the others right there. And I know they probably wouldn't say some of their nicknames they call Squirrel, but that's beside the point. We had a good team. We gelled. And animosity, there wasn't the only thing that went back to the huddle or anything like that. They were just saying, what's going to be our next run or our next pass. We didn't pass a lot. We had great blockers. We had great backs. I was blessed to be around a group of guys like that. And I know the old saying is, there's no I in team. Well, there was no I in that team. Because if it hadn't been for what the seniors coming in at that time and playing, it just made everybody gel. That was your leaders of the team. I could look back on Bubba Butler and Ray Hester, and Ray came in out of the military and came up and started coaching us over here in the little old field. He was tough, but we proved to be a tough team that could take it. Anyway, I guess the biggest thing of it is being able to play with a group of guys that played with all heart. And I think Richard Hurston made a speech one time. He said, yeah, when Rogersville played up here, championship, Rogersville shut down. The community supported that team. Toby Sewell was taking us out having catfish dinners and stuff like that, but the community backed this team. So that's how this team came about, and that's why it was a team.
My name is Coach Ray Hester. I was assistant coach on the 1974 Lauderdale County State Championship team. Coached mostly defense and the offensive and defensive lines. Well, the thing about it is the junior high program here was very competitive and very good. And we knew when the group that won the state was in the 9th grade that they were special. Matter of fact, from their 9th grade year to their senior year, their record was 40-4. Another thing that a lot of sports teams get a rap of is they're all dumb. They're not very smart. That's not true with that bunch. They were very, very smart in books. They stayed out of trouble. They didn't get in trouble. They didn't do stupid stuff. I kind of tried to intimidate them, make them scared of me, what was going to happen on Monday during practice if I heard they did something on the weekend that they weren't supposed to do. That group was very, very, very down to earth, and they knew what they wanted to do. And as a matter of fact, the year before in '73, if we hadn't got a punt block on our own goal line, we'd have probably won the state that year, because Glencoe, who won the state, beat us 25-22. That was by far the closest game they had in all the playoffs. And their coach talked to us at the end of the game. He said, "I sure would hate to have to play y'all next year." And I think they thought that they were good enough to win. The mental part of it sometimes is as important or more so than the physical part. Anybody that was standing on the sideline within 10 yards of me, when James Haney fielded the punt on the 2 or 3 yard line, would have heard me screaming plumb up to the press box, let it go, stupid, let it go." And he took that thing and started upfield and just took about one step to the inside. And you could see on the game film there was about 4 or 5 people outside him next to the sideline. And when he took that step to the inside, they took a step too. But it was all over then because he went by them like a bullet. Some of the things that happen to you in life and sports and everything, I call them God winks. You know, in a lot of cases, that if something happened, if it happened 100 times, 99 times it wouldn't be successful. But everybody has luck. Went to a coaching clinic one time down at the University of Alabama, and Coach Bryant was down there and had this high school coach. And he said, "Coach," he said, "how come y'all have so much luck?" Coach Bryant looked at him just as unconcerned. He said, "Son, I've been in this business 30-something years, and I've found that the people that work the hardest seem to have the most luck." And that bunch that won the state, they worked hard. Most of those kids that was on that team was not only successful in athletics in high school, but they've been successful in life. They were just good people. I still see quite a few of them every day. And they always kidding me about working them so hard. And I told them, I said, "Guys, I was about 18 months from leaving the good country." I talk about Vietnam. And I said, "There's one thing that I always told myself, I don't want to hear somebody say I can't. Because over there you didn't have no choice. You might not could, but you had to try. There wasn't no such thing as I can't." And I said, "I don't want to hear that on the football field. May not be successful, but you can darn sure try." But we were tough. Good group of people. If our country had a bunch more like that right now, we'd be in a hell of a lot better shape.
Daniel Patterson, I was number 65 that year and played tackle and defensive tackle, nose guard, and a little bit of right offensive tackle. I remember Michael Haraway in practice, where we had some terrible practices, terrible hard. And Mike would say, "Patterson, if you let me get around that end," said, "I'm going to skid over there and skid up to the water spigot," and they were down in a hole. And we'd fill them up with water. Of course, it had grass, and then you had to drink it through your teeth. Mike said, "If you let me get over, I'm going to get a drink." He said, "You tackle me right there and you get a drink too." So, all I remember about it is all the hard work and trying to kill each other in practice. Take tests the next day and you bleed on your test papers where your knuckles is all scabbed up. Now you look back on it, it's a lot of fun. More fun to talk about it than it was actually doing it. Had Coach Hester driving us hard every day, trying to get the best for us. I've got a broke finger and I went back and sacked a Tanner quarterback. I heard a twig snap. Started looking for it to snap, and my finger was pointed the wrong way. Well, he had fumbled the ball and we recovered, and I run off on the sideline. My finger was pointed that way. Went up Coach Hester, "Give me that." He got it and put it back in place, threw about 3 rounds of tape on it. "Get your ass back out there." So, of course, we was young and tough, and it didn't seem to hurt us too bad back then. I believe we would have won the Central game if I'd been able to play. I'd been starting defense till then. I came down with pneumonia that week. The doctor didn't want me to play. Mom didn't want me to play. Looking back, I wished I had. But Tad Bedingfield took my place playing both ways. He was a guard and then came over and took my place for that night. I think it's Henry Simmons. Tad was our kickoff man. I believe it was Henry Simmons from Central. He run up and hit Tad under the chin, knocked his helmet about 20 yards backwards, and addled him. And Tad tough as it come now. And the next kickoff, he done it again. Now, Tad had a good game, but I think he'd have had a better game if I'd have been able to take his place on defense. Talking about Tad, I believe to the day, if I could get in shape to play, and nobody could catch me in a trap play. We come up from junior high, and they let us get over there and practice with them. And I broke through the line. I said, I'm fixing to tackle whoever was running the ball, Mike Roberson or Haraway back then. I saw him coming. I said, I'm fixing to knock his jockstrap off. And boy, about that time, all I could see was stars and sky and turf. And Tad Bedingfield had pulled a trap. He was the fastest man you ever seen in 10 yards. He'd knock me, I bet you, 10 yards. Nearly knocked my helmet off. Good bunch of guys, good memories.
Okay, Billy Mills. My number was 63. I was just fortunate enough to get to play with a group of kids, and where we were in 74, we was just refused to lose.
It looked like just about any time there was a turnover, you were around the ball. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I watched a lot of film with the coaches, especially Coach Hester. And, he and I would discuss how, to use my quickness to be in places like that, such as the block punt and Glencoe and the recover the fumble in Red Bay. And watching film, I would see who had the weakness, and then basically I just beat them to the tip. I always remember the Glencoe game because I blocked the first punt. And I went to the sideline. Coach Hester said, Mills, you're offsides. I said, Coach, you tell me that all the time. So the next play, next time they punted, they changed the snap count. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I beat the ball to the punter. That's how far offside that was. And I heard somebody screaming and hollering, and I looked over there and I'm going like, oh no. I may just go get the bus. And he was going crazy over there. His face all red. I'm going like, geez. It was so cold at Red Bay, it was like 5 degrees and the wind blowing. And Coach Hester came up there and said, Mills, you're in for Dennis. He pulled a muscle. And I'm going like, oh no. And that's when they had tearaway jerseys. And he said, guess what, Mills? You can't arm tackle tonight because all you go have is cloth if you do. I look back on things that he prepared us for. We were just way more prepared. He would just make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. My son, he kids me now, and he goes, Dad, what do you think about you think you might jump all sides again like that? And I go, no, I never did jump all sides no more after that. He always told me I was off sides all the time. He said, Mills, you're off sides. I go, no, Coach, I was just so fast, it just looks like I'm off sides. He goes, oh, don't give me that. He was a unique individual to play for. He would just prepare you for life, and he prepared you for ball.
I'm Steve Pennington. I was number 12. I was one of the quarterbacks on a really good football team. This was a team we started out in the 9th grade, and we learned how to win football games. We played hard. We expected to win, and we kept that going on. The community and the school were entirely behind us. We set our goals to win a state championship. It's a shame we hadn't got another state championship up here. Lauderdale County needs another state championship, and we need to get behind the boys that's playing up here, put our butts up there in the stands and pull for them and tell them what we expect out of them. I just look forward to that day. Our football team didn't have a great football player. We had a handful of outstanding football players, and then we had another bunch of just good football players. We had a lot of depth. Practices were hard. I wish we had won more than one. We should have. I look forward to seeing that day when we get another one up at Lauderdale County.
My name's Eddie Lamar, number 44, and I played safety on defense. And what I remember about that season was what a strong leadership we had from the senior class. They'd been winners their whole life, from Pee Wee football all the way till they graduated. We just kind of got behind them, and they just kind of took their lead, and we were blessed with them guys because They were the leadership. They pulled us along, us underclassmen. And we were blessed with three great coaches, Coach Grisham, Coach Hester, and Coach Butler. Real smart guys that were player coaches. It was really a blessing to have been coached by them guys. And so we started that spring off. Ronnie Owens came to Rogersville, and he had just graduated college a little bit before that, and he took us backs and taught us how to block. So when we came into the season, we could block. That's one thing we could do well. And we were blessed with three running backs, more than three, but the three running backs that we had was Michael Haraway, Mike Roberson, and James Haney. And these guys could start for anybody. Michael was a big bruiser. He just, between the tackles, running hard. Mike Roberson, he could run, and he had some speed. And then James Haney, most people around here know James Haney. He went on to play at Alabama and had a successful career. Blessed with really good linemen. These are all homegrown kids, they grew up in Rogersville. We didn't recruit nobody in. They was all just homegrown, grew up here. And it was a great season. It was kind of like Friday Night Lights without the drama. The community was behind us, and it was fun to be up here at that time. The senior group was what led us, and their expectations were real high to perform on the field. If you got on that field, they expected you to do your part. I credit them for that state championship, because if it wasn't for that bunch, there were a number of winners, we never would have won that state championship. But it was a blessing, and I look back on it with fond memories, and it's something that stuck my whole life.
My name is Ronnie Owens, and I am a 1969 graduate of LCHS. I was fortunate to play college football. I signed with the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, spent 2 years up there, and then I finished my career at what was then Troy State University. I was unsure whether I wanted to coach or not. In the spring of 1974, Coach Grisham asked me to help with spring training, a 1 week of spring training. Both Joan and I were at home for a spring break, and so I volunteered to provide some assistance to Coach Grisham and Coach Hester and Coach Talley. So I coached all of these players for a week, and it was an outstanding experience. I would hope that I provided some help to them that helped them achieve that state championship in the fall. This was in March. They were going through spring training. And I knew then from just what I saw and what took place in practice every day with the focus and the enthusiasm and the teamwork that this team had, that they were going to be pretty good. I was fortunate to see all three playoff games then, and saw the championship game, which was, I don't believe I've ever been as cold on that night that they won that championship, but I think they won it by 1 point if I remember correctly. It was a great experience, a lot of talent on that team, and they were deep. There was probably about 20 players, 21, 22 players that contributed. But a neat experience. I worked primarily with quarterbacks and running backs. I remember drills that we did, and I was fortunate to have gone through some tough times at Chattanooga, because they were always playing people that were way over their heads, such as Tennessee. I played against Archie Manning. I played against Pat Sullivan at Auburn, and Terry Bradshaw at Louisiana Tech. He even shook his hand out there on the field. And of course, he threw 7 touchdowns in the first half, and he dressed in street clothes for the second half, and that's the last time we saw him. And running backs, and coaching running backs, everybody thinks that running backs just have to run the ball, and that's what I thought when I got to college. But hello, you got to block also, and we had some tough blocking drills. Our quarterback in that spring practice was just getting killed on passes, and I couldn't get a running back to step up there and hit them under the chin. We put in some hard work, and they got better quickly. They had to get better. I told them I wasn't going to deal with them, because they have to find something else to do. Great experience, great team. A lot of those guys are still around town, and I see them often, and they remind me of the spring training days. Matter of fact, I'm serving on the board with one of them, Daniel Patterson, of the Board of Education. He reminds me quite often about that. I'm glad I had the experience.
My name is Blaine McCoy, and I did play on the 74 championship team. I was number 10. I played in the defensive backfield, right halfback. I think they probably call it cornerback now. I played alongside of Eddie Lamar, so we were pretty close. We had some excellent ball players to start off with. I mean, that was number one. We had a backfield, you could say, had everything. Michael Haraway, if you needed 2 or 3 yards, he could punch it in. Mike Roberson, he was kind of intermediate, a good blocker. And then James Haney, of course, he was a speedster that could get outside. So we had that. We had some good linemen. I think we had fairly good sized linemen across the line. But we also, I think we had some camaraderie within that team that you don't see in all teams. We had, I'd say, nobody that was really what I'd call a hot dog, so I think that went a long way to making us a cohesive team. The guys were all dedicated, to what we were doing. We went through a lot, as a lot of teams do. I can remember some of the times in practice when it would get really, really kind of tough because if you didn't do well, they would turn up the pressure on you a little bit. But by and large, I think most of the people were, always trying to do their best. We had a lot of support from the community. You'd go out to a ball game, people would speak to you, and you knew it was important. I mean, obviously, Alabama is a football state. I remember growing up, we had a lot of heroes on those couple of teams before us, so we looked up to them and then continued. I was a sophomore on that team, and we had seniors, but we looked up, to those guys, and we were friendly with those guys, and they treated us with a lot of respect too. In terms of being a team, I think we had some pretty good guys in the reserve role to practice against. During the playoffs, some of our assistant coaches, they went out and scouted some of the other teams and came back, and then they would take what they had learned there and apply that to our practices, and I think that also helped. Ted Talley was one of those coaches. I don't think he got to see a game until the last game.
Ted Talley, was one of the coaches, basically a junior high coach. That year, I was hired the year before as junior high coach, and luckily, I walked into a very good team. I had James Haney, Sammy Springer, Blaine McCoy, Mike Kelly, and a lot of these other guys that were sophomores on the state championship team. The seniors, well, they were juniors at the time, they had gone undefeated, as Tracy said, and unscored on. And this bunch that I inherited my first year, we won 7 junior high games in a row. Gave up a couple of touchdowns, not too many. They got us a game at the end of the year with Loretta's B team, and they beat us 7-6. And I knew, I walked in that dressing room, and those kids, every one of them was squalling. And I said, they're going to be good. I know. It was a good experience to come here from Mississippi. And as I told them out in the hall a while ago, several coaches from other schools, they would come up and say, how do you get these kids to hit like that? And I'd say, they just do it. If these kids knew that you care about them as people and not just somebody to play ball, they'd fight for you all day long. And that's the way it's always been here. As far as the state championship year, I would scout the week ahead, and it was exciting for me because I was just a young kid myself. And I'd get through with junior high practice, and I would run over there to see what I could do to help. When I would scout, I'd bring the report back, and they'd let me do the scout team and kind of show them. And with the tightness of these games, I don't know how good a job I did. It was so much fun. Being around Coach Grisham, Coach Hester, Coach Butler made me mature, as a coach. It kind of went over into my other sports that I coached. Back then, coaches didn't make very much money. And I had to coach every sport just to make something, to raise a family. But I'll never forget, I was going to Red Bay, and I went in the office, and I told Mr. Cagle, I got to go to Red Bay tonight. And that's a pretty good trip, so I need a little gas money and need a couple of dollars, maybe to eat on. That's what he gave me, $2, for the whole trip, But, that's the way things were. But it was an exciting year. These guys were fun to be around. They worked hard, and practice, a lot of times, was harder than their games. They beat each other to death every day. They were so physical, much more physical than other teams that we played. Great school, great community, and I spent 36 years here and loved every minute of it.
I'm Tad Bedingfield. I was number 66. Played guard on offense, defensive guard or tackle, maybe inside linebacker on defense, and kicked as long as they would let me. The thing I remember about our team was the fact that we weren't a team of a couple of big stars carried the team. It was group effort almost all the time, from the starters down to the folks that didn't get to start. Everybody worked toward winning. I don't know if we were as anxious to win or as afraid to lose, but everybody contributed. Some of the toughest defenses we ran against were our second team defense in practice. I was made to look a fool a bunch of times by some of our defensive backs. Rickey Cagle would be one of them repeatedly. It was just a good time to be playing football. Some of my favorite memories usually ended up with me looking stupid. The times I tried to be tough was the times I got hurt. One loss we had as seniors playing against Central. We were chasing the running back down our sideline, and Coach Hester was following us down the sidelines, talking very strongly to us. As we got to where he had to stop and couldn't follow us that far down because they scored, he ran out of things to say to us and called us something that we needed to be hearing. And as we got out waiting for them to kick the extra point, we looked at each other and said, "Did he actually call us?" Yeah, he ran out of things to say. We played Brooks our junior year. We scored, they scored, we scored, and went for two. Went right over me and Keith on the right side, and we didn't get the extra 2 points. Lost 7-6. Some years after that, me and Keith happened to be up at the field watching the guys practice, and on the south end zone, Coach Hester walked out to a spot on the goal line about a yard out and said, "You guys remember what happened right here?" And he didn't have to say it. That was exactly where we had let the ball carrier get caught behind the line. And a bunch of great guys to play with. A lot of good times, a lot of tough times. I think everybody carried into adulthood. What we learned was probably not hurt as bad as you think you are when you get hurt, because we got encouraged to play through all that. How to bond with others toward a goal that may have seemed kind of insurmountable. The whole time we were making that run as seniors, I really didn't think about us winning the state championship. I knew we had to win the next game, but I just could not make myself go to think far enough ahead that we were going to win. One of the things that kept happening as we were running wind sprints after practice was Travis Butler or Ted Talley would be at the end as we were running, and "Are you running fast enough to win a state championship?" And I was thinking, I'm running as fast as I can, but I don't know if we're going to win a state championship. Very proud to have been a part of that the whole time. We appreciated it back then, we appreciate it more now as the sport of the town as we were going through those games. The decorations and all the shop windows downtown, the people feeding us, that was great back then. Somebody would feed us a steak dinner, it seems like about every week. Anytime you feed a teenager, you know it's going to make an impression on them. Town was always behind us, and that was a great thing to feel. Every week people would be talking about the game and did we think we were going to win, or how much are you going to win by. And sometimes they knew about the team we were going to play, sometimes they didn't. Well, that's going to be an easy game, and we knew it was not going to be an easy game. Last year's team, I saw a lot of that going on. I'd love to see that going on for every school team, whatever the sport. Football is one everybody can get behind, but there's so many other athletes at the schools playing the different sports. Basketball, tennis, track and field, golf now, fishing. If we'd had fishing back in the 70s, I don't know if we'd had a football team. Unless it was deer hunting, and that might have got them. Sad to say, my wife mentioned to me that a lot of the people that we would really like to say something to are no longer with us, but their families, the people from downtown, all the businesses that were there during the 70s, we did appreciate it, and I'd like to see everybody get back now behind the football team, basketball team, everybody, just the same way as it was back then, and make it memorable for those kids like we had it.
My name is Travis Lee Butler III, and I was one of the managers on the 74 state championship team. My dad was an assistant coach, so every day after school I went to practice with him. What I do remember is we had Packy Grisham, Bob Grisham, Marty Cosby, and me I was 6 years old at the time. We were managers. We were there at practice every day with our dads. I guess the most exciting part of our job was after a kickoff, you got to run out there and grab the tee and run back before you got run over. And it was always me, Packy, and Bob, and Marty taking turns. Who's up next to run out there and get the tee? That and taking out the water bottles at timeouts and stuff. I was 6 years old at the time. I don't remember a lot. I just remember the excitement, the crowds, the noise. It was a big deal for a little kid at the time. You know, all the football players, you know, I looked up to them. You know, I thought they were the greatest guys in the world, you know. And I guess that's where I got my love of football from. I ended up playing it from Little League all the way through college. I just really enjoyed the game. I still do. Played other sports, but football was the one thing that I liked the most. It was a great experience growing up, having your dad as a coach, being out there every day, seeing all these guys, and just being part of it.
Keith Masonia, 60. I played left end on defense and right tackle on offense.
Did you enjoy playing with these guys?
Yes, I did. I sure did.
Did you enjoy playing for these coaches?
Oh yeah, especially Ray Hester.
Sounds like he could be pretty tough on you guys.
Yes, he sure could.
Do you still think of this team occasionally?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time.
4 playoff games. The last 3 were very close.
Yeah.
And looked like could have gone either way. How do you think y'all pulled them out? Y'all just know how to win?
I don't know. But we did. I was proud to be a part of this team.
Gregg Davis, I played center. On defense, I played linebacker, nose man, guard, tackle sometimes, just wherever I needed to. On the kickoff team, snapped a long ball. I was about 165 pounds, I think, soaking wet at the time. One of the seniors that year started playing together in 7th grade under Ted Kavich. Ted was a heck of a ball coach. From what he told us, he never played ball, but he was a good coach. We knowed each other. If I was at center, they depend on me. If Taz at guard, I knowed I could depend on him. We knowed what each other were going to do. In high school years, we went to the playoffs all 3 years. 10th grade, we lost the first game to Alexandria. And that was your Tom Hardy and all that bunch was seniors. Second year, we lost to Glencoe, like I said, by 3 points, and they went on. I believe they said they averaged about 20 points, winning the rest of the games by about 20 points the rest of the season. As seniors, we played 4 ball games that year. We scored over 50 points per game. Matter of fact, we was playing Brooks, and the year before, they beat us on a fluke 7-6. But when we got out there to play them at night, 7-6 was on the scoreboard. And when we left, it's 54-2. And as bad as I hate to admit it, the 2 was me. I snapped a punt over Terry Ingram's head, and he got in the end zone and got tackled in the end zone. We scored 28 points, I believe it was, in 58 seconds. That night at Brooks, when I snapped that punt over Ingram's head, I hated to come to the sideline because I knowed what Hester was going to have to say. Preacher Whaley, I come off the sideline, he said, "Greg," he said, "that was a beautiful snap." Said, "It's the prettiest piles I ever seen." He said, "It's about 10 yards too high." Of course, Ray was over there just ranting in the rain for the whole time. But me and Ray got along well. We went to Crossville. Michael Haraway told Earl, and Earl was his uncle. And he told me, he said, "It's the only time I ever heard him call him Uncle Earl." He said, "Uncle Earl, give me the ball." When we went to run the extra point, he stopped, put it in the end zone. And he did. And that's what we won that one on. The last game against Ashford, I remember when they scored that last touchdown, and they went for 2, didn't they? And I was thinking to myself, I said, if they scored, it don't matter, we're going to score again anyway. I just had it in my mind, it didn't matter, we were going to win that ball game that night, come our high water. When we won it, if you've never seen nothing like it, you need to have been there. Like I said, we carried a big crowd, and that night when that ball game ended, it looked like a wave out of the ocean coming across that football field, fans coming out there. I had people grabbing me and hugging me that I didn't even know. Didn't have no idea who they were. Rogersville had always been a big football town, and I was hoping this year's bunch that won it this year, I was hoping they was going to go all the way. I really did. 50 years long enough, it's time to bring another home. If we couldn't play ball, half of us probably wouldn't have graduated. We'd probably quit school if we hadn't been able to play ball. And that's the only reason I went to Auburn. I wasn't good enough. I was probably one of the least talented people on that team, if you don't know the truth about the matter. I wasn't very big, I wasn't fast, but I did love to play football. All them kids coming in the dressing room after it was just, it's unreal. I mean, it was an experience.
If you had never been there on something like that, it's something to see and something to feel. And it's something I'll never forget.
It was Rickey Green. I played end on offense and linebacker on defense. My number was 84, and I had a great honor a few years later of a young man playing Pee Wee football that wanted my number. It was a senior-laden team, and I was one of the juniors. It was always be the best you can be. So that's all the coaches ever asked, because they knew the potential that was there. Sometimes we didn't get along, but when we was on the field, it was one for all. And when we played other teams, it was everybody against the other team. Someone asked me, what was the most important game during the season? I said, well, it's probably the one we lost. We lost to Central, like the third game of the season. And from that failure, it was a totally different group came out on Monday. We'd done some soul searching because that game we were not the best we could be. And it came from Coach Grisham, Coach Hester, and Coach Butler's voices also. During the playoffs, we played some tough competition, but our biggest competition was during the week. People you went against, even though they weren't starters, they were the best competition you went against. And that's what made that team better. And gained a lot of insights into how to relate to other people through Coach Hester and Coach Grisham. And I think anyone will tell you, they had different mannerisms in coaching, but they knew how to coach each individual and what each individual needed to hear from them. And Coach Butler too, Coach Talley. Was at Crossville. They were lining up to win the game. It was tied in regulation because we lined up. The guy in front of Billy was the guy in front of me that night. He says, how are we going to block it? I said, will you tackle the two guys that's going to block me? And I'll block the field goal. And that may not have been legal, but he did. He went right between them and actually tackled them, and we blocked the field goal. Went into overtime. Michael scored, and then they went for two after they scored, and we blocked the pass. It was a good time, though I still feel some of the aches and the pains. At halftime, when we went in, there was no IVs and things that they hooked you up to. They gave you an RC Cola, not Gatorade, not nothing. But during practice, there was not that. We had to drink out of the sprinklers. And one humorous story we had, I won't call his name, but everybody will know him, come from Anderson. And the first practice, he got out and got a little hot, and we got the squirt bottle. Again, everybody drank out of the same bottle. Squirted in some of this old green Gatorade, and he said, golly, I'd rather have some iced tea. And we said, we don't get iced tea during practice. We barely get Gatorade. You got one squirt. So things have improved athletically through the years, and I really think for the better.
Bobby Berryhill, jersey number 21, left half, right half, just played ball. The 74 team, tightness, brotherhood. As small as a team as we had as in number of people, well, obviously we made up for it in what we did. The coaches, they did such a great job. They prepared us for life. When it come time for your time to shine, it happened. I mean, we had some great games. Do we still comb through the pictures at home? Yes. It was a life-changing experience, it was. The Town Creek game, Hazelwood. That game right there, we were getting beat 7-6 going in at halftime. And our coaches come in and they say, all right, we've done what we need to do. Y'all hash it out, and walked out. So with vigorous hashing it out, we come out, and that was probably one of the better games I had. In the second half, I touched the ball 10 times, had 89 yards. Got pictures of Danny Otis Springer leading the way. Look at things now, and you think back then, and you go, as rough as they were on us, how we stepped to the call. Iuka, James Haney, Tracy Graham, and myself had over 100 yards apiece. James had 3 touchdowns. I had 3 touchdowns. Football was the agenda, and it showed through the town. The town believed in it. When you have the backing of the town and the coaching like we had, it's up to you. And yeah, we stepped up to it. I am so proud to be a part of that. Did the teachers, were they lenient? Yeesh. You still had to do your work. I talked to Charles Crump And I said, what do you remember most? And he said, no water. We didn't have water breaks. You worked through it. So, yeah, they made us tough. Mike Roberson, him and I used to ride an old motorcycle. We go down when Wheeler was being built and break a chain on the dirt piles. 2 o'clock in the morning, you had to walk to the guard station, which was a while. We go up there, call Steve Pennington. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, hey, we need you down here. Be there in a minute. That's what we were about. We need you. Be there. Gregg Davis, Tad Bedingfield, Keith Masonia. I mean, the list goes on. You can say every time that we were down, there was somebody stepping up.
Sammy Springer, played fullback. That was number 31. Whenever we played Central on opening kickoff, Central this was all planned. They had a guy that come down and hit our kicker, which was Tad Bedingfield, knocked his helmet off. The next time they kicked, they done the same thing. And of course, I can't remember who they put on him the next time. They didn't do it no more though. But it was kind of a surprise. And the thing about it, us losing to Central was a good thing for us, because it showed everybody that you can be beat no matter how good you are. It was a big blessing, I think, to the whole team. Another thing that I remember during practice, and I know Steve and Terry and everybody else will remember it too, Coach Hester would get his fingernail clippers out. Tick Nance would scratch somebody in practice. And I thought it was hilarious. It wasn't funny to get scratched, but it was, it was something that stands out. It was funny to me. And he'd get them fingernail clippers out, and Tick, he'd fuss and carry on. And Coach, he'd just take and clip them all off. And that happened, more than once. East Limestone had a quarterback. He was a pretty good sized guy, supposed to be, real tough, and he got beat up pretty bad. Defense was on him good, and he wanted out of the game. I think it's Dennis Davis, if I ain't mistaken. He swung at Dennis, and I don't think he hit him, and he could have. I can't really remember, but he did that to get out of the game. I mean, and he did. He was supposed to have been, real good. 50 years has been a long time, and I've lost some hair along the way. But it was a good time. It's a lot of good memories that you can't forget unless you start losing your mind, but
I'm Bob Grisham. I was the son of Earl Grisham, the head football coach. I was a manager on the 74 championship team. Some of our duties, I guess, me and my brother Packy and Marty Cosby, we would fight over who would get to run and get the kicking to you after each kickoff. Aggravated the players so much when they'd run wind sprints, we'd pour water out and in front of them, wouldn't let them have it, and we'd act like we was going to bring them a drink, and they probably hate us to this day for that. He knew this team was special from the very beginning. I mean, they went through junior high undefeated and unscored on. And he was just always excited about them and how they all came together and how they was all hometown boys from Rogersville. In that first round of the playoffs, we played East Limestone, and I know that we knocked out 3 quarterbacks, and they was about to just let the clock run. That was amazing. Then we went down to Crossville, and my goodness, what a war they had. And the thing that stands out in my mind about the Crossville game is Rickey Green stopping that 2-point conversion. We win the game. And then the Red Bay game was an offensive game, and they had some awesome players. They had a Townsend guy and 2 Kennedy brothers, and they were really, really talented. And the score changed every possession. So whoever had the ball last was the team that won. And then the funny part about the Ashford game, the last game of the season, was when they punted to us, and James Haney was on the 2-yard line. Probably should if you're on the 10-yard line, you should let the punt go out, going in the end zone. But anyway, he fielded the punt, and while it was coming down, Coach Hester was hollering, "Let it go, let it go," and he was just screaming. He took about 5 or 6 strides to the inside to the middle of the field and planted his foot, and then Coach Hester started, "Run it!" And I think that was a state record. I don't know if it still holds now, but it was a 98-yard punt return. Several years later, my dad, he and Mom went to Hawaii to see the Pro Bowl game, probably late 80s. When he got on the plane, this guy asked him, he said, "You look familiar," or "Who are you?" And Daddy said, "Well, I'm from Rogersville." And he said, "Well, I don't know anybody from Rogersville, but I brought a really good football team up there, and they kicked our butts, but I had the best team." And Daddy said, "No, I'm the head football coach that beat you. We had the best team because we won, and we won." That's the night they won the championship.
Roy Trousdale. My high school name was Roy Mack Trousdale. I was number 62, and I played defensive end. It was a great season, great year by a great team. In 1974, at the time, we were the only Lauderdale County school system football team to ever win the state championship. And 50 years later, that's still true. I was a junior on the team, and I'm really happy to say that there were several juniors who really contributed to the success of that season. I wasn't one of them, but I'm very proud of my close friends and classmates who were. There were 3 sophomores who started on the team. A 10th grader had to be really good to get on the field with that team, and these guys were. But it's just impossible to take the focus off that senior class. Great athletes, great football players, strong, tough, determined, great leaders, and they were all smart. When that senior class, when they were 9th graders, the junior high football team went undefeated, 8-0. Now, if I stopped right there, that's a remarkable accomplishment. But that team was unscored on. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that before or since. It sounds like one of those made-up teams when I would get in the backyard as a little boy. Unscored them. Think about it. No team took the ball down the field and scored. No cheap touchdowns off turnovers. No opposing running back slipped a tackle late in the game when, normally a team would kind of let their guard down. It just didn't happen. Nobody scored on that team because they didn't want them to. From the moment that happened, I don't believe there was a doubt in anybody's mind at school or in town that before that team left, before their careers were over, they would win a state championship. Now that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for adults, but they were kids. But they didn't try to get out of the way of that pressure. They embraced it. And so they immediately went to varsity as 10th graders, and the team went undefeated and went to the playoffs for the first time in school history. I believe that class changed the culture of the entire athletic program and school. And I can make you a solid argument that they positively impacted the culture of the entire town. So I think we all understood back then in 1974 that it was a big deal. We appreciated it and we knew it was a big thing, but what we didn't have at the time is the perspective that the passing of time would eventually give us. There's not hardly a week that goes by that I don't think about it in some way or talk about it. Somebody asks me about it. I have the state championship plaque right below the team picture in my basement. I walk by it, I think about it fondly. It was just good times. If you ask me for a specific moment that kind of defines it for me, it was the final game against Ashford. We had the ball, time was running out. Ashford couldn't stop the clock anymore. The clock started ticking down, so something just told me I need to look at something. I need to have some sort of visual perspective of this happening so I can carry it with me the rest of my life. So I turned to my left and I saw the scoreboard clock that was running, and when my eyes focused on the clock, it was 6 seconds left. It started ticking down, and Coach Hester just happened to be in my field of vision. I saw him turn to the scoreboard, and there was about 3 or 4 seconds left, and it was just ticking off, ticking off, ticking off. And he watched it go all the way to 0. And when it went to 0, he turned his head forward again and just looked down at the ground and just kind of enjoyed that moment privately before all the craziness started. And it's a great memory.
My name is Richard Cagle, but a lot of people call me Rickey Cagle. I was number 80. I was a senior on the state championship team in 1974. That I played defensive halfback and end when I got to get in. Most of the time I was one of these second stringers, maybe third stringers, but at least second string. Played my freshman year here, but I was in my 10th grade year. We would move to Titusville, Florida. My dad was working on Skylab at the time, and so I went to school in my 10th grade year to Titusville High School. It was a fun team to be able to play with, and a lot of guys that we still see today. I got to get in, play the games because there was about 4 games where we scored over 50 points. And so I sit there and say, when you score over 50 points, you usually get a chance to be able to get the second strings in. They got to play a little bit. So I guess one of the games I remember most was Brooks game, and it's funny because of the fact that we'd lost to them the year before, 7-6, but the senior year we beat them 54-2. And what's funny about it was that I remember getting some luggage that I had to keep dial thing for as far as opening up my luggage, and I used 542. So I remember that score for a long, long time. Raymond Nance, he was such a good defensive back that people did not throw on Raymond. When we played Red Bay, we got in the middle of the field, and Coach Grisham had Raymond Nance and Dale Watkins change jerseys. Dale wore 32 and Raymond's number, and people did not throw on Dale because they knew how good Raymond was. Our running backs that we had back then, of course, Mike Roberson ran, and Michael Haraway and James Haney were the starters, but we had a good second string bunch of running backs. Bobby Berryhill, Tracy Graham, and Raymond Nance could run. You get in there and it really didn't change anything about our offense because we ran the same things and did just as well with different running backs.
My name is Dennis Davis. I was number 81. I played defensive end, tight end, and left tackle. I'm calling in from California. I've been out here since 1985 when I was in the service, and I just stayed and made my living out here. The 4th game into the season, we played Central, and we got beat. That following Monday, Coach Grisham and Coach Hester came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in playing left tackle. They could get somebody to be tight end, which Rickey Green ended up playing tight end. Well, they moved me to left tackle, and they moved Gregg Davis to center, and we won 11 straight ball games. I still remember walking off of the field thinking, man, we finally did it. And it was a feeling of elation because we had accomplished something that was kind of unheard of. Some of the things I remember about Coach Grisham was one of the best influences in my life. He helped take care of me and my sister, and he helped us get settled coming to Rogersville. One of the things about Coach Hester, that guy could see everything everybody did on every play. I don't know how he did it. He could tell you what everybody did and did or didn't do. And Coach Grisham was right there with him. But Coach Hester, one of his famous sayings he had was, it's not a sin to get dirty, but it's a sin to stay dirty. And that was for guys that didn't take a shower. But him being a Vietnam veteran, I thank him for his service now because being a Vietnam veteran was a big deal. He was the coach. Coach Grisham was the head coach. And they pushed everybody to be the best they could be, but it took everybody, the young guys in the 10th and 11th grade classes, it took everybody to make that team what it was. They did a newspaper article here a few years ago about us and the 74 championship team, and my wife saved it and she framed it for me, and I've got that hanging here in the house. Everybody had a diversified way of going about their life, but there's one thing about it: we could sure walk tall with our head high after winning that championship. I remember back there in Rogersville, to be walking in town and everybody would congratulate you and pat you on the back and tell you what a great job you did. That was fun to watch. I was fortunate, and to this day, the things that I learned from Coach Grisham, Coach Hester, and that I learned from football and being a champion has been with me for 50 years, and it was part of my daily life to be successful and not to settle for second or third best. We're not doing that because of the fact that we were champions.
I'm Marty Nesmith. I wore number 82. I was a sophomore and played end and some special teams. When you're a 15-year-old kid, I'm not sure that you commit a lot of stuff to memory. I look back on it, and the successes that we had were rare, I guess, after 50 years. But back then, I just sort of thought that's what we're supposed to do. We're expected to play hard. We're expected to win. So I don't remember celebrating victories as much as I did hating to lose. One of my other memories probably is I always thought Friday nights were a piece of cake compared to Monday through Thursday. It was tough practices. I often thought too, there wasn't a whole lot of speed besides James on that team. People pretty good athletes in their own right, but man to man, you had to beat us because we beat on each other all week. The mentality of just refusing to lose, refusing to get beat. Most of my actual playing memories came actually after the Central loss. Ricky mentioned earlier about playing in. I got to start at the other end for the last 10 or 11 ball games. And as a sophomore, there were a few of us that got to play a little bit, but it was a heavy senior group. I may remember Crossville more than the other ones because we went over there to Sand Mountain. And my memory of those boys were tough. They were a whole lot like us. In the Red Bay track meet, I remember that real well. My main memory of the Ashford game, that's the coldest I've ever been, I think. And I think that may have contributed a little bit to us being able to win because we had guys that were crazy enough to have cut-off jerseys and cut-off T-shirts, and it was below freezing. I think Ashford came up and bought every sweatshirt and pair of sweatpants they could get their hands on for that night. They were wearing them during the game. I probably enjoy the thoughts of that championship more now than I did back then. It was a good group. It was a tough group, tough mentally and physically. Had strong will and desire not to lose.
My name is Packy Grisham. I'm Earl Grisham, who was the head coach's youngest son. My memories of 1974 state championship football was just a kid having a blast. The team members, all of them were my heroes. I can tell you, if I walk in the old locker room, I can pretty much tell you where they all sat at. I knew where their lockers were. I knew who I could aggravate at any certain time, and we did aggravate. Took a lot of whippings, as we called them. They call them spankings now, but I got a few tail whippings up there because of the things we would do to players that wasn't appreciated by my daddy and Coach Hester. But I just watched them all play, and Daddy, a young coach, asked him one time, what did you do that year? And he didn't take the credit. He says, when you have that kind of talent, he said his best coaching years were some of his worst seasons, because when you have the talent you had in '74 and the camaraderie and the meanness, the toughness that them boys had, he said it wasn't as much hard coaching. He said they would go out and they tried to win every ball game, and they did. When you went up against them, you knew you was going to get 100%. And I think that's helped a lot of people in life. Because when you get down, you can't quit. You got to keep digging. And I saw it firsthand in a lot of the ball games. I was thinking about a story that was told earlier about, Rickey Green. If you looked at him then, he's not no super athlete. Looking at him, had a super heart. There's a lot of that. I remember they said, and I wasn't in the huddle, but they said that, I forget who the player was, but when we was in overtime, he said, run it over me. And then Michael Haraway stepped up and said, give me the ball. People wanted it. They wanted to run over me. I'll whoop my man. That's the kind of people he's coaching. A lot of it, when you hear about the '74 team and you hear about the coaches, Daddy and Coach Hester and all of them did a great job. But you can do a great job with subpar people and have a reasonable season. But when you do a great job with great people, great things happen. Something else, it was all hometown boys. It wasn't no recruiting like you do in school now. You don't go out and say, hey, if you come here, you can do this, you can do that, or they might be this or might be that. And we all know that recruiting goes on in high school sports right now. And it was Rogersville boys. Some of them come up hard. I remember the pregame meals. We'd walk from the locker room over there and come down here to the lunchroom. The pregame meals was a big deal because that was a good meal for everybody. The community was behind us. I remember eating at 4 R's Restaurant. They won some game and we ate at 4 R's Restaurant. The Booster Club bought them steak. Just the whole community was behind it. It was a wonderful thing. A lot of great memories.
Tracy Graham. I wore number 35 and I was second string running back. I actually learned all the plays from all three positions in the backfield so that when somebody did go down, I'd get another opportunity to get some playing time. We had some really good running backs back in those days, and if you weren't ready to go in any of those three positions, you might miss out on something. I wasn't very big. I can remember in the 11th grade, I think I started the 11th grade at about 125 pounds. And I think I might have worked my way up to 130. The senior year, I was full growed by then. I weighed 145 pounds, so I was ready to go. But the thing I did have was speed. I ran track for Coach Talley. We went all the way to state. James Haney, Raymond Nance, and Lonnie Birch. We were on the school's 440 relay team, and we ended up placing second. That was quite an accomplishment, I felt. We could have actually won the whole thing, but Raymond had some problems, and we ended up finishing second. But we'll go with that, and we'll never discuss what Raymond's issue was. But it was a good day in Selma. A lot of things have to all come together to create that perfect storm needed to win a state championship. Those last 3 games, as I recall, we beat Red Bay by 3, and they were driving. If they'd have had 2 more minutes on the clock, there's no doubt they would have won that game. And then we played Crossville. We went into overtime, and we just really had a hard time moving the ball that night. We scored in overtime, and our center, who was usually always great, Gregg Davis, he rolled the extra point back to Steve Pennington, who was playing quarterback. And somehow, some way, Steve, he was a good baseball. He was a good athlete all around, but he fielded that bounced ball and got it on the tee just before Tad got there and kicked it through the uprights, and we got out of Crossville with a 1-point overtime win. I would have hated to go another round with Crossville in overtime. And then we got to Ashford down in Houston County. Never heard of them. After we kind of got the hang to running the power I offense, I mean, we were scoring 40 and 50 something points a game on people. So when we rolled into the championship that year and beat East Limestone by about 30 points, as I recall, we thought, or at least I did, I thought, well, you know, we're just going to run over everybody. We're just going to steamroll them like we did everybody after the Central game. But it got hard, and I was very, very relieved when we got out of that Ashford game with a 1-point win and a state championship. Our dreams of having a state championship, I think, they started all the way back when we were 9th graders, and we went undefeated and untied for 8 games. Nobody scored on us. You started hearing whispers, well, these guys are really good. Well, I don't remember us ever thinking we were that good, but, you know, people started whispering in our ear that y'all could win the state championship. So we went up to 9th grade, or while we were still in 9th grade, there was still some opportunities to play some football with Coach Grisham. He got us some JV games lined up, and we went on and played 2 more JV games. He'd already kind of told, well, you know, y'all playing at a different level now, so don't necessarily go in there thinking you're going to, you know, beat these guys and they're not going to score on you. But we did. We beat them, and they didn't score on us either. So we felt pretty good about ourselves rolling in as sophomores the following year.
My name is Dale Watkins. I was number 36, and I played on the left side, outside linebacker, and that left side cornerback or halfback on the defense. From there, I like to say hello to all of my teammates and classmates, and I can't believe that this has been 50 years, but I think this is something great that we did back in 1974 to win the 2A state championship. And I guess some of the more memorable moments that I remember from it is the intense practices that we used to have. In practice, we really got after one another. And I think that kind of showed when we actually went out on the field and played other teams. Coach Hester and Coach Grisham, I mean, awesome coaches, man. 2 different type of people, one that's more methodical and one that's intense. You know, Hester being the one that is more intense and getting after people, and Grisham being more methodical and getting things done and running plays and stuff. So we had a well-balanced team, really well-balanced team. I would say that we were pretty balanced all the way across, because we had, I think it was Don Nance on one of the ends, and Raymond Nance was on the other cornerback, and we had Michael Haraway and Danny Springer and Terry Ingrum and Rickey Green and Eddie, Roy Mack. So we really had a well balanced team. We had some awesome guys on that team, man. And I think that in Crossfield, I had a really good game. I had quite a few tackles, and I think we won that game like 13-12. See, we really had a great group of boosters that kind of took care of us, because I remember that plenty times after games, we had like steak dinners. Sometime after practices, we had steak dinners. We were down at the 4 hours at John Robinson's place, I used to come home all the time. I used to see a sign that's out there on 72, welcome to the home of the 2A state champions. I used to see that for a long time. We got after one another. Coach Hester, he had us so fired up out there. We were after one another. And and when we played, it showed that we didn't, we didn't slough around. We went out there and we hit some guys. We put the hammer on them. And I guess that was one of the big things, because I remember some teams we played, we went straight on defense. We wouldn't take the ball because, we had James Haney, and he was like a speed demon, but we went on defense on some teams, and we went down there and put the hammer on, let them know first of all that, hey, you're going to get hit.
I'm Mike Ezell. 50 years ago, I was number 51. I played on the line, played ends, linebackers. I was in the 11th grade class of this year. We had an exceptional senior class of about 10 to 12 big old boys that were a sign of good nutrition. That's what deer hunters say anyway. These guys were really good size, strong, and I think her coaches had lined up watching these guys come from junior high up into high school and had lined them up to go through these state playoffs and set the goal to the Blue Mound, which was relatively new at the time. Not a lot of them had been given away. The quest had started about 3 or 4 years before '74 with a couple of classes that actually had some pretty good athletes. Ronnie Ritter, Larry Parker, several others, and we came along to this senior class that had these pretty good 200-pound boys, and I was 140 pounds at the time. I was pretty mean, but I did lack a lot in size, and of course had some speed. I'm about 100 pounds heavier nowadays. Coach Hester finally told me about 25 years ago, he said, "You're finally big enough to play." And but they were 11 or 12 of us in the junior class and sophomore classes, and we were the scout teams. If we were playing Ashford, we were Ashford for a week. If they run a 4-4, we ran a 4-4. And this was what's known now as slobber knocker football. If we threw a pass, it was something odd. Most of the time it was running the ball, and we did that all year. Came up short only one time. That was against Central. They were a 3A school, so it didn't count against us. But that was the largest crowd I've ever seen in that stadium. We came out of the locker room, and I was like, our jaws just kind of dropped because the stands were full and the warning track around there was filled with that. Everybody in the county was looking forward to that matchup. We came up short that night, and I think it kind of was a wake-up call. It was a community effort for a little town like Rogersville. This thing caught on, and people got in behind it, and they really, really supported us. We did things like parades through town. On a Friday before travel teams, we'd parade through the elementary school. Have all these little kids, looking up at us and wishing us well. One story I do have, and I'm going to close on this, was the Red Bay game. We were over at Red Bay, and I had played some on special teams along the year, and my grandmother was in her 90s, and she was sitting at home in Rogersville listening to it on the radio. Radio had broadcast a lot of these games back at that time, and my name got called out for making a tackle on the opening kickoff. And it really tickled my 90-year-old grandmother to death. And what I didn't tell her was I was really still on the sideline. So he got the number 51s mixed up with somebody else. But I never did tell her any different on that. But other than that, I have never seen a community get together with all the parents, all of the band members, the school, and just the community as a whole got behind us, and we felt like if we came up short, we'd be letting a lot of people down. So we tried not to make that happen, and 50 years has gone by quickly.
I'm Tim Barnett, number 53, offensive center. I remember this group of boys. I remember when we started out in the 6th grade, they made a call to have a 7th grade team, so they got us together in the 6th grade to have a spring practice. And I'd played football in the backyard for years because there's a bunch of boys that grew up around me. And I finally got the chance to play organized football, and that's before I knew about calisthenics and all the exercise drills. But anyhow, we went on to the 7th grade. The only other 7th grade team around here was Lexington High School. We played them 3 or 4 games and lost every game to Lexington. The next year, the 8th grade year, I remember I finally got to start the last game of the season in offensive tackle. But that year we had a so-so season. The next year was our breakout season. We went 8-0 and undefeated and unscored on in the 9th grade. They moved us up to varsity at the end of the season, and we played 2 games against Loretta, 2 B games. Loretta came down here for the first game, and we beat them 48-0. The next game, we went up to Loretta and faced a totally different group of boys. I'm sure it was their varsity team, and beat them 8-0. The next year, we went undefeated during the regular season, lost to Alexandria the first game of the playoffs. Their junior year, we lost the last game of the season to Brooks, which was a larger classification in the state, and ended up losing to Glencoe in the playoffs. And then our final season, we lost during the regular season to Central and won the state championship. I remember this group of boys well. We played together, we were a team, and I don't know how they felt, but my feeling was loss was never a consideration. We never felt like we would lose when we went on the field. My wife got together with when I was in the 10th grade after we lost in the playoffs, and I got with her and been with her ever since. If I could do it again, even with all the aches and pains and all that you have now as an old man, I would still go back and do it again.
Michael Thigpen, number 70. Middle linebacker anywhere they needed it. Lineman, nose man preferably, I like that. Get back there and take the handoff from the quarterback. No, I mostly caused fumbles, but I didn't never get the ball. But anyway, it's fun. Oh, those memories are great to me, really. We may have done different things on our own, but when we got on the field, it was us. More like a good family to me. You get to playing for serious stuff. Some people don't play fair. Cheap shots was taken on the line. I can testify to that myself. But revenge is fun sometimes. I thought the world of all our coaches. And we're sitting in the locker room, a few of us one day. I said, I heard the coaches talking about it, so we stand a real good chance of winning. I said, we can do it. I think Rickey Green and Otis come in there. They went out and got some more boys. I said, well, it's up to us. Y'all want to win or not? I said, that means us getting out there and doing what we got to do. Guess what happened? We did what we had to do. We were more of a team than you could imagine. Not that we hung around each other off the field, but when we stepped on that field, one thing in mind. There's a lot of camaraderie. My other 2 linebackers, Gomer, James Brown, and Darrell Gilley, they were good. I think we all were on the special teams. I know I was. Had a lot of fun doing all that. I was in shape. We went some pretty far distance to go play these games. The community stood behind us. They supported us. We needed something. I think we even got new helmets at one time too, didn't we? The new super helmets, so we never worried about the concussion, had the air, water, and that was cool. And neck braces. And Coach Hester, he was mostly my coach because I was a defense guy. He was a little rough around the edges sometimes, but we loved him. Kind of talking like our dad, Come on, suck it up, let's get it. That kind of deal. And Coach Grisham, he had his special knack with offense. The whole coaching staff, even when we was coming up, Coach Talley, Richard Hurston. We were privileged to have the folks we had and the guys we had on the team. I think we was privileged there. My dad was there when we won the last game. He's shorter than him, and was bigger around too. And he hopped over that fence. I didn't know if he was going to make it, but he did. But he was tickled to death. And just all in all, a good time.
My name is Carl Waters. I was the manager. I was probably one of their biggest cheerleaders. They just didn't know it. And I'd have to keep up with Bob, Marty, and Packy Grisham. In addition to doing the other duties that I ended up having to do, you know, I wouldn't have traded it for anything, just for the simple fact because of the camaraderie. I felt it. I mean, just, you know, being a manager and stuff, getting to be part of the team, even though I didn't get to play. The Red Bay game was sure enough a nail biter. Anyway, it was a heck of a ride, and I enjoyed it. It helped me to mature, to grow, to be a better person by being around these guys.
I'm Jeff Mason. I'm the head football coach at Lauderdale County High School now. Graduate of Lauderdale County High School in 1984. Played football here, played for the coaches that coached the 74 state championship team, Coach Earl Grisham, Coach Ray Hester, and Coach Ted Talley. Grew up in Coach Grisham's house a whole lot of the time with his two sons, Bob and Packy. We were good friends, and Bob and I graduated together and played together, and had the great honor of getting to coach with him here for several years. So again, the great honor and opportunity to get to work with these young men every day was my desire to do that, my desire to play football, my desire to stay involved in the sport and to understand just what it can do for you, the lessons it can teach you. Started back in the 70s with this 1974 team, and even before that, the early 70s. 72 through 74 invited our team to come to the Fish Grill this year and have a dinner with them after the guys had went undefeated since the first team since 72. And it was a great honor for us and a great honor for our players to see these guys and to see successful men and to see what kind of men that this football program has put out for years. That kind of set the standard for me and put me on the direction that I guess got me to this point in my life and doing what I'm doing. So I can remember being at a state championship game. I think anybody in town will tell you that was the coldest night maybe there's ever been in Rogersville. I was about a 9-year-old boy, and I remember at times there was so many people that my dad having to pick me up and put me on his shoulder so I could see some of the stuff that was going on. It was one of the most amazing nights I've ever seen. I guess I've dreamed of being in that situation ever since. Growing up here in this town, football means a whole lot to a lot of people, and it goes a long way, and I remember that time during the early 70s and in 74. What an experience it was to go to town and to hear people talking about those teams, to see the decorations on store windows, to see the pride and the spirit in the things that it brought to this town, and then to see the social effect it would have had on this town and community. 1974 team definitely, they set the bar high. The standard here at Lauderdale County has that team's name on it. As long as I've played here and as long as I've coached here, we're constantly reminding our football teams about this team, and we're constantly talking about the things they had to do, the sacrifices they made, the kind of teammates they were, the way that team came together as a group of men with the same goal and how they were able to achieve that. And we also talk about how they have been in this community and how that has carried over in the things they've done in their lives. They are the standard. We set out every year trying to achieve that standard. We appreciate them for setting that standard so high, because once you walk on the field up here at Lauderdale County, there ain't but one thing that's going to be close to equaling what this team did, and that's winning the state championship. It's an honor and a privilege to get to speak about them a little bit.
You know, along with all the great coaches we had, there was a guy that stood out to a lot of us that was on the sideline with us every game, was Brother H.R. Whaley. And he was always encouraging us. He was always saying, "You-uns can do it, you-uns can do it," all the time. Always encouraging. If he saw, like in one game, he saw we just had 10 men on a kickoff, he'd grab somebody up, put them out there to play. But another time he was complaining about a call, and the referee thought he said hell when he said well, and threw the flag on him. And HR was all bent out of shape about that, and he went and apologized to him after the ball game. But there was a lot of people contributed to what went on up here. I just wanted to bring that out.
He was just such a phenomenal athlete. One thing I remember about James, I mean, back then, hydration wasn't as big a thing as it is now. We would get like one water break in the entire practice. Everybody but James. James never drank a thing during practice. I just remember thinking, man, you know, I know you're great, but I'd be in this line right here. Get me something to drink.
Second down and inches after the penalty. Touchdown. James Haney putting the frosting on the cake in Tuscaloosa. Let's watch the triple option. First fake to the fullback, then outside with a quarterback, Gray, then he pitches out to Haney, number 21, a very fine freshman, goes right in for the touchdown.
I'm Jim Cox. My wife and I have operated the East Lauderdale News for over 50 years and had purchased it in 1973. So we were really into the newspaper business full time just before the 1974 season. What I want to talk about is how excited the town was over this team and the accomplishments of this team. My yearbook in 1927 shows the schedule for the football team that year, which tells me that football has always been important. People of Rogers say a 1929 annual. And it shows a fully dressed out team in the stadium with a covered stands, I suppose, keep the sun off the fans. Back in those days, most games were held during the daytime. 1974 had to be special because each game that came around was another win. And as it approached the end of the season, it became apparent that they had an opportunity to go on to state. The town itself, they were talking this up. Every time I'd go into a cafe, and a lot of coffee drinkers would sit around the tables and drink coffee from, say, 6:30 in the morning until it had to be run off for the dinner crowd. And they'd drink coffee and they'd talk. And most often, they'd get around to talking about the football team and its accomplishments and what they were doing, how excited they were. Believe it or not, it's been 50 years and people still talk about that team in the coffee shops, which tells you how important that team has been to the town. They were all nice kids. They were all people that you could relate to. Some of them came from families that were wealthy. Some of them came from families that were very much not wealthy, but they were all kind of equal on the team and in the esteem of the town. Today, these same players are 66 or 67 years old. That's amazing when you think about it, how time flies and how these players have meant a lot to people over the years. I mean, we've got band members, for example, that enjoyed being at the games and playing, and got cheerleaders that were there for every game and pep rallies. And we've got to give those folks credit too, because they helped with the spirit. They helped build the esteem of the team.
They were there and practiced hard too. So I'll remember that. Anyway, the 1974 team is history. It'll always be remembered. Each team member, and no matter what they did in life, no matter how it turned out, they still had that 74 season to be proud of. And I'm sure they all enjoyed when a person would come up to them at the coffee shop or elsewhere and say, hey, I remember that play. I remember that tackle. I remember that run. I remember that score. I just remember what a good player you were. I just say that as time goes on, we'll have another championship team someday. And I hope that team is as respected as the 74 team has been. Thank you.